Welcome back to the Berg Podcast. Thanks for joining me today. With me today is Ford.
Hey, how's it going?
And Dan.
Hey, everybody.
And we were sitting here chatting, and I came across something yesterday that I thought was interesting that I had never really considered before. I was at a Kiwanis meeting, the speaker spent a lot of time living in India, so as an American transplant in India. But the funny part to me, or interesting, there were a lot of interesting things she said, doing great work. But one of the funny things that she said was, Indians are generally very welcoming of Americans, but their perspective of Americans is almost entirely based on what they've seen in movies and social media, which I thought was really funny, right? And I guess I'd never considered, how do they come to any other perception or interpretation of who we are? But some really interesting generalizations, right? Like they thought that every American was a Christian because we all celebrate Christmas, right? Every portrayal that they've seen in movies of people celebrating Christmas was a Christian holiday. They assumed that everyone in America is wealthy or had lots of discretionary income to spend because of what they see on social media and places like that. And I just thought that was really interesting and had never considered it before.
Perception is reality until it's not, right? I mean, that's the neat thing there. I mean, when you see that it might not even be out of the country, but especially when you go out of the country and talk to people from the home country of that, what you are perceived as and what you perceive them as is literally based on the information you had in front of you. So you basically have no way to verify something unless you actually go explore and meet and do that kind of stuff, because it's just like, well, I saw a picture of it. So,
yeah,
New York City, it snows lately and there's horse-drawn carriages and there's no homeless people and, it's everybody has diamonds on and have you been in New York City recently?
Sort of store shopping, right?
There's no one on the streets.
Times Square is a fun place to hang out, and
you and your significant other can stand there, and there's no one around, and you can
you can take the selfies in the middle of the street, and, not a problem at all, right? Yeah, that's awesome.
And then there's the reality.
Yeah.
So do you think that Ford did you go to New York as a kid sometimes because of your mom?
Not until probably teenage years.
Okay, but still, okay. So as
a long time ago, but not
a long time ago. So has your perception of it changed from then to now?
A little bit, but it's not. I don't think because I'm old and grumpy. Maybe that's one of the reasons.
Wait a second.
But I think it's also because my parents made it a controlled environment when I was there.
Right. So
we would go to what is considered Chinatown, and we'd have some Chinese food and some dumpling soup. We would go to, they kept us in a very specific area or specific thing. So we had these 3 things you would do. We didn't just get out and walk. She wasn't letting the kids just roam free on the street. So you didn't see some of the things maybe too.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say is it's one of those things that when you think back and you remember some of these places, even in my head, I know what New York is. But I also know in my head I have certain memories of going to New York to do certain things. And it's exactly what you'd expect. I remember being in Central Park and there's a giant rock that you climb up and the little thing with the boats and there's people skating and, kids playing and you know what I mean? And I remember that. And I know that that's a very specific view of a certain time of the day in the right conditions where it's sheltered, so it's not exactly what you remember it. Yeah. But I feel that way. I can also do the same thing with my grandfather had a farm in Kentucky. And the same thing, Kentucky in my head is a certain thing. And it's not as Kentucky as people would say. You know what I mean? There's things about it that I remember that way. But because I was with him, you know what I mean, in a group of people that he was comfortable with, even though he was a tobacco farmer and raised cattle at that point, you know what I mean? I remember it that way. So much of what you remember, to your point forward, even internally, is how you are shown that piece. You know what I mean? For me personally, you guys even always have a perception of what New Jersey is, right? And people's perception of New Jersey is North Jersey.
And you don't live up to any of the stereotypes.
I live up to some of them.
But whoa, that was not.
That's all right.
Not even a veiled attempt at sarcasm.
But New Jersey, that you perceive a lot of times, is like New York. You know what I mean? It's very crowded. It's very hustle bustle. Where I grew up, there was not that much more housing than where you in Morgantown. You know what I mean? I grew up in the Pine Barrens. It was middle of nowhere. So it got developed eventually, you know what I mean, as happened everywhere. But it's your perception, you know, it's what people portray this thing to be. And so I think it's interesting when you start to look at outside of what people think about us, you know, and then how we evaluate. I mean, right now there's a lot going on in the world right now.
Yeah, right.
And a lot of people are taking stands on what they perceive to be, but we really have no idea, you know, whether you take, you know, and this wasn't going to be a politics thing, but whether you take like the Ukraine situation or the Israel situation, there's no way I'm going to sit here and say I know what's going on over there. I have no idea. I
know what CNN or Fox told me.
Right. You put on 3 variations of the news and it'll tell you 3 variations of what's going on. And if you only listen to one of them, you're going to take that stand, maybe, you know, or take the opposite stand if you're against that stance. But it's so much of perception. It's what the information you're fed is how you make a decision on what you see. And so the idea, getting back to what you said, that like all Americans are like rich, Christmas, you know, like Ford said, you know, from another angle, they're like fat, lazy Americans.
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
in other words, like depending on whether you like us or not, which newsreel you got and how we impacted you, how our lifestyles impacted that other country, that's going to determine how you view Americans, you know, and it's just part of the divisiveness that rides everywhere of everybody trying to judge everyone instead of just live your life.
Well, and what we were talking about there was that, you know, I talked to people from other countries, and if they watched American-based movies, they had the image of New York City and, you know, what the people from India said.
Right.
But if they had locally made in their country of Americans, fat, obnoxious, terrible table manners.
They'd only met people from New Jersey.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
probably it. That is probably it.
It looked like a mob movie, I think, is what they were trying to say.
You guys better be careful. You don't know who listens to this podcast. They're not going to, you know.
Well, and like we were talking about, you said about New Jersey. So most of us, our experience of New Jersey, if we didn't think North New Jersey, was us going to the beach.
The beach, yeah.
So we're going down a highway at this point to get to the beach. Well, everybody usually builds things close to the highway before access. So what we saw, now if you get halfway down on, was it?
AC Expressway.
Yeah,
Or
and then
72.
if you're looking onto the side, you're not focusing on getting to the beach, and you're seeing all the blueberry plants and how agriculture it is, but you're not seeing that because you're going through Camden to start with, and that's probably not the
I wouldn't go
gateway to, you know, get through or whatever it might be.
To
Not what it used to be.
Now, Admiral Wilson Boulevard, you saw some things.
Well, now Admiral Wilson Boulevard is a safer trip, I think. That's not saying a
Martin
lot,
Luther King Jr.
but you used to get
an education.
You got an education on Admiral Wilson Boulevard in neon signs.
Yes. Yeah. Or you Haddonfield or wherever you would work. When I worked down there, you saw a different perspective of it. So that's what we're all boiling it down to, is that it's a perspective of, you know, we think about it out here. People travel to our area to see the Amish and understand what they do.
Right. Yeah.
Good luck with that.
90% of what they want to see, they want to take buggy rides. 90% of buggies to me usually are causing some kind of challenge to getting to access to where I'm trying to go.
Sure.
So to me, that's like, people are slowing down because there's a horse pulling a carriage. And it's like, move over. We got to keep going.
You know what's funny is, and I think about it as you said, the horse and buggy, but the initial thing that triggered me is the of Haddonfield and Camden, right? Is how much the lines are so close. You know what I mean? Like the Haddonfield and Camden are very close together. And if you don't know, Haddonfield and Morristown have money and old money, and Camden does not. And you know, you sort of look at it, that's unique to that area because of how it developed. Like you have to go, you know, you can get like Narberth, Marion, and Ballackinwood right on West Philly, but then that money runs out in a straight line. It's just all surrounded by like suburbia with their money. Once you get out towards Villanova and everywhere, but then you get out here, and you know, Aaron and I always joke that like 100 is almost a line. You know what I mean? Like you change. What is east of 100 and what is west of 100 is very different because you start to get into very rural farming communities as you come out here. And one of the things I always thought was strange is as I started to be out here because of work and I started to have to drive west, it was crazy to me that there was stuff west. Like in my head, once I cleared probably in the old days, King of Prussia, but let's say 100, it would just all be like Morgantown. And then you get to Lancaster and there's like a city there. And it's like, what? What are all these people doing here?
Yeah, right.
How did they even get here? They're in the middle of nowhere. You know what I mean? It's like, and that's like, now that's the New Jersey perspective of like, because if I'm on the turnpike, all I just see is nothing.
Yeah.
Because it's almost the opposite. I mean, you'd see like a warehouse here or there, but you're just driving and you see nothing. But there's actually all this, residential and houses, a lot of people. And, I remember years ago, and it was, I think you told me the bar closed. It was in Lancaster. They had a lot of concerts, small concerts.
Oh, the Chameleon Club.
And my brother and I, there was somebody playing, and we're like in the Chameleon in Lancaster, like, can't go to Lancaster. It'd take like days to get there. I'm like,
that 4 days it takes to get to the beach.
Yeah, 4 days it takes to get to the beach and get, what I mean? But like, in other words, now.
Because you thought you had to go by buggy.
Well, I had to go. Yeah, we have to get by the buggies. That's a separate issue. But now, whereas the other week we had a soccer tournament, and we had a lot of our friends not on the girls' teams, but people we knew. They got hotel rooms in like Lancaster and Hempfield to play in Hempfield. It's a 40-minute ride.
Right.
Like this doesn't make any sense. They like made a weekend of it to go see Lancaster. I was like, guys, you could go see Lancaster any day you want. Like and you don't have to go to Lancaster if you just clear Morgantown and it's Lancaster County. You know what I mean? It's all the same. There's nothing really to, but the perspective of where you come from and what you expect, I think I've probably talked about this before. Did I ever tell you that when my sister was going to watch it was probably a Rutgers game at Penn State, going back now probably like 15, 17 years ago. And they're driving out there and they stopped at a Walmart, which was either in Morgantown or in Ephrata, right? Ephrata has the other.
Ephrata was the first one.
So it was probably Ephrata, but I don't know.
Yeah, that depends on how far you go back. Right. It was probably Ephrata.
So it was probably Ephrata. And they called me because they got off and there was a Walmart with the place to tie up a horse.
Okay.
And then they saw a horse and buggy, and my sister informed her boyfriend, Kev, and my brother that she didn't realize they weren't reenactors. She thought that Amish people were like the colonial Williamsburg thing.
They were reenacting.
It was, and it was just a tourist attraction. And my brother and her boyfriend thought this was hilarious that they didn't realize the Amish was actual people. They still live this way. Yeah. But it was, but there's 70 miles apart, and she had no idea that existed.
Mm-hmm. That's funny.
Well, I think that's an interesting thing to just touch on is that perspective is what you know. I still remember talking to your brother about kids that he was teaching in the city that were, I'm not sure how old, that had never left a 5-block radius of the city.
Yeah.
And now out here to leave a area you have to, but there you could walk, you could public transportation, you could do whatever, but they stayed within that nucleus. And I think that's one thing that's changed drastically just over the years is that a lot of people, if they choose to, explore further out.
Right.
I'm not saying leave the country, but it's just like, and then last year we were talking to someone and they had never been west of Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And with planes and the costs coming down, like that's not my world. I like to go see new places and do different things. So I was, but that was what they were comfortable with, and that's what they wanted to do. And so it was their choice. You go backpacking in, Germany and stuff like that. And, and like you guys went to Spain.
I went to Oktoberfest. It's a little different than backpacking.
It sounded better.
I appreciate you saying that I was like doing something.
You had your Merrells on, probably you're good, right? But I mean, you guys went to Spain, most people's ability to be transitory has expanded if they choose to.
Well, you know what, Ford, Aaron and I have a discussion sometimes where I will take the stand that America is the greatest country in the world. I still believe that. I think it's true. I think you have more upward mobility. I think you have more ability to be, you can make yourself almost anything you want to be if you're just willing to do what it takes to do that. And it's not as easy maybe as it once was when the population was smaller, but I still think it exists. And I think when you compare it to other countries with some of the governmental issues, you get to live pretty free. But I also think, and so I would say to Aaron, like, you're already lucky enough. I always like the saying about if you're at the beach, if you can be at the beach, then you're lucky enough, sort of thing. Right. But if you're born here, you're pretty lucky to start with in terms of your freedoms. But we also have to look at, regardless of how we like view ourselves in the social structure, the economic structure of, the richest of the rich and people who are really struggling, is that where each of us was born enabled us the ability to see things that a lot of people don't see. You know what I mean? Like I just take it for granted that I went to Maine and stood in the middle of the wilderness in a cabin with no electricity on a lake because I wanted to.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like there's people like to Ford's point that have never seen a quarter acre of grass. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I could go stand in the middle of 1 million acres of wilderness.
It's always actually I grew up in Southern California, close to the beach, and I live now on the East Coast, relatively close to the beach. And so it's always amazing to me when I meet like an adult who's never been or seen the beach.
Ocean.
Yeah. And I'm like, how's that a thing?
And they always say, I've been to a lake.
As though it's a comparison.
Yeah, that's not a comparison.
I'm like, no, you have to see this. And I think, maybe not all humans feel this way, but I feel like as humans, we're like drawn to the water, right? Like, I don't know why, but the ocean, lakes, like, streams, rivers, I think it's almost like a nomadish thing, right? Like, from passed on from cultures.
I think for everybody except for the people that work on the water, water is always a representation of relaxation.
Calm.
Right, yeah.
I mean, you think about like those little like apps for your phone. What do? They have like trickling streams on them.
The white noise is water. Yeah.
So I mean, like water is always a version of that ability to have a relaxation to all of us. So that's why we're always some kind of water. Going fishing, getting a tan.
Don't forget surfing, Ford.
Surfing. Anything you want to do down there, or eating, ice cream and pizza on the boardwalk. But it always is a relaxation, like mental image.
Yeah. Right. I also do take to the other side though, that I think, you went out, Ford, you've been out west, but I don't know if you've done when you went with the boys and you went all around, like Wyoming, that area.
Yep.
And I do, Aaron and I talk about that we're going to go there because I feel the same way about that. I feel like if I could, I've already made it this far and I've not seen it.
Right. Yes.
But I feel like if I didn't see like Wyoming, Utah, Oregon, then I feel like I'd be not whole. You know what I mean? Like you need to see that. If you can afford the time and the money to be able to go do it, then I think it's worthwhile. I had always said I was not going to go leave the country until I had seen all the things I wanted to in the country. And I didn't end up doing that. I've been out of the country a couple times.
Yeah.
But given my choice, I mean, Spain was awesome. And I went to Costa Rica. That was amazing. Mm-hmm. But you give me my choice. I'd like to go there, but I'd rather let's go see Wyoming and Oregon and those sort of places first. Let's see these other things what does it look like? Like, what would it look like to fall asleep in the middle of Wyoming just with, what would that look like? I don't know what it looks like.
The Grand Canyon. That's it for me.
Yeah.
Like, I was fortunate enough to see it when I was young, cause I lived in a place where we could drive to the Grand Canyon. Right. Not like we did every weekend, but I've saw it when I was a kid. But taking the boys to see something like the Grand Canyon, like there's really cool stuff. Montana, Wyoming, different parts of the country, but like the Grand Canyon for me is one of those things. Like standing on the edge of the Grand Canyon, like there's no picture that you've ever seen, or for me, a moment that I've ever felt that was so grand. Right. Like,
I felt that way when
it's wild.
We will ski Colorado again with the girls, but we're trying to make them wait because we didn't ski there until we were adults. And I want them to be good enough that I treat skiing like we talk about operating. A lot of people can run equipment.
Right.
A few people can operate it. They're not going to Colorado until they can ski. And by ski, I mean that I could blindfold you, drop you on a trail anywhere, and you're going to make it to the bottom.
That's a high standard.
But I'm being realistic. Like that's what Aaron and I.
There's
That's
not
what
a lot
Aaron
of things I could do blindfolded.
Right, but I mean that's like Aaron won't ski the trails that the girls that I want the girls, but I'm not going to take the girls until they can ski the trails that I can ski.
Sure.
But when I went out there and I was, it was on the Arapahoe Basin is on the Continental Divide, so you're 15,000 feet up, and just the middle of nowhere, and to see that was sort of what you're describing for me. It was. I mean, I had never seen anything like it. I mean, I was thousands of feet above the trees and I could just, it was more snow than I had ever seen. Like just everything about it was, and I tried to take pictures of it, like you said, but I have really good pictures that do not do any bit of justice of explaining to you what that was in my head, and was it, I it's one of those things.
Same. Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. Like I've got, maybe you've seen it, like the screens, like the background of my computer screen is a picture that Aiden, my son, took while we were on that trip in Arches, Utah. And it looks like a screensaver. Like it looks like Microsoft
It's
you
a
know,
really good picture.
background.
It looks like a painting.
And,
It's not a painting, but in other words,
but even like you're like, oh, that's just like a postcard, right? And like
Yep.
that you can't describe it
Yep.
without having felt it, which is weird.
Yeah,
So,
one of my favorite pictures of a different thing is when I was surfing one time in a storm that I would not surf in now.
Yeah.
Like I don't belong in it, and you're gonna be shocked, but it's not worth the risk. I don't believe I would actually do it again. But the picture is a terrible picture. It's like grainy, and you really can't see anything.
Yeah.
And you can see me if you look. If you know what you're looking for, I could show you where I am.
Okay.
But that picture is like the coolest picture because in my mind, I know exactly what that felt like. I
Yeah,
know what
yeah.
was happening when, like, not at that exact second, but I know what that felt like. And so it means something. I think that's part of, when we talk about sometimes when people take pictures of our work, right? That's what, if you can capture that, like if the picture is more than just a picture,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what's hard is to try and get a picture of the Grand Canyon or, some mountain or the ocean or any of those things that really conveys what that feels like is what makes people professional photographers, because that's something different. I can't take that picture.
Yeah.
But I'd still like to see it, and I'll take the picture.
Yeah, that's probably a good place to wrap it up. But I think we started out with perspective. And
Perspective.
I think we talked about perspective recently on the podcast anyways, but that just struck me in a way that I hadn't considered before, that
How people see us.
Yeah. Yeah. So cool. Thanks for joining us, folks. We hope you enjoyed this episode and join us again for another one.